I'm giving this entire bedroom a makeover for under $3,000. And I'm going to start with this thrifted highboy. I refuse to strip or sand it. I think it's in good enough condition that I can use some other products and make it look just as good. I'll show you the before, the after, and the process I used. And before we dive into the restoration of the highboy, I'll give you a quick little tour of this bedroom. This is my son's bedroom. The blue color was great for him, but he's moved off to college now, and I'm going to turn this into a beautiful cottagecore guest bedroom. I want it to look elevated and luxury. I don't want it to lean granny, so we're just going to start piece by piece and start reconstructing this bedroom. So it currently has these bright blue walls. It does have one nice walkout window that has a cottage garden on the outside. He has an old computer desk here, an old lamp, and some random things on his walls. And I recently found this highboy at a thrift store, and I'm going to make it look beautiful again. My entire budget for this project is $3,000. That includes hiring people to paint, electricians, and even these lighting fixtures. I already did replace the lighting fixtures, which were old contract grade dark brass, and I replaced it with this lighting fixture from West Elm. It's a porcelain light fixture and this white ceiling fan that has a remote control so you can change the temperature of the light and control the fan as well. I just think that the white tends to blend into the ceiling better so you don't notice the strange duct that I have in the ceiling, and it's just going to go a long way at drawing your eye to the rest of the room. I do have these plain beige linen blackout curtains. I may or may not keep those, I'm not sure yet. So the first thing we're going to do is start simple. We're just going to be working on this highboy. In the meantime, I'm trying to figure out what color of wall I want to go with. And yes, this room does have the problematic unpainted nice wood trim, and the rest of my basement also has this unpainted wood trim. It's in really beautiful condition. It's a nice white trim at the base too, so I'm actually going to keep it. I know that the trendy thing to do would be to paint right over it or to color drench this room, but I'm going to just preserve this woodwork for now, paint the walls, and see what I think after a year or so. So here's a close-up look at the item that I thrifted. This was about $100 at a thrift store, and I removed one of these knobs so I can get replacements. You can see that the top is not perfect. It does have a little bit of damage on the top. There are a couple of paint splotches along the front trim as well. And these wooden knobs are really doing nothing to upscale the look of this highboy. You can see that it has really pretty curved drawers at the top. I'm going to put two different sets of hardware at the top, and the rest of the hardware will be the same on these long, flat drawers. It even has a little keyhole there. I may try to find a key that matches. And let me show you the products I'm going to use for this project. I'm just using a few different things. The first thing I'm going to use is this Howard Restore a Finish. I got mine in dark oak. I think that's the closest match. It does come in different colors, so you want to find the closest match to your piece of furniture. And afterwards, I'm going to use this Howard Feed and Wax. And I'm sure this piece of furniture hasn't been waxed in a really long time. It's quite dry. You can even see that the finish on the curved drawers is a little shinier than the rest of the unit. On the inside of the drawers, I'm going to place a liner. I didn't want to use one with adhesive. I usually don't have very good luck with those sticking, and you have to be really exact. So I found this non-adhesive drawer liner in a really pretty pattern. It has a rubbery texture on the back, so it doesn't slide around inside your drawer. In the meantime, I'm trying to decide a wall color. I can go with a couple of different options here, but it does need to coordinate with the wood trim, which can be a little bit tricky. So I've kind of narrowed it down to two color schemes. One is an off-white and one is a sea green. We'll see what I end up with. Okay, so to get started with the highboy, we're going to remove all of the drawers first. This is kind of a fragile piece of furniture. I don't want to move it around with the drawers in it, so I moved the base frame into my basement and I placed a little drop cloth underneath it. To start with, we're just going to clean the item. I have a bucket of warm water here with just a little bit of vinegar in it. I'm just going to take a soft rag and go over the entire unit. It's really important when you do this that you don't let any excess water pool on this piece of furniture. This is quite old and you don't want any sort of water damage from the cleaning process. So I just dip my rag into the water, I squeeze it out so it's moist, and I started going over all of the surfaces. Make sure that you go over each of the surfaces. Don't just focus on the tops of the dresser and the fronts of the drawers. Make sure you go down the sides, get the legs all around. The wheels had a little bit of cobwebs on them. I even went inside the dresser and cleaned all that out as well. I don't know where this came from, but I just want to make sure that it's nice and clean before we even get started. For as clean as this piece looked, I was actually really surprised how much dirt I removed. In fact, I dumped out my water and I got a fresh new pail of warm water with vinegar, and I did it a second time just to make sure I got everything off of it. And a little tip for thrifting furniture, if you have an estate store somewhere in your town, that's a great place to get thrifted furniture. These stores often go into estates, and these are just families that want to get rid of furniture, and it's often higher quality pieces of furniture. Sometimes these places will have Facebook pages, and you kind of have to watch them because sometimes they will post what furniture they have coming up the next day. People will actually wait in line before the store opens so they can rush over to the items and get them. And my mom actually got this for me. There were 3 other people trying to get this unit, but we got it for a steal at just about $100. So when you're done, just let this piece air dry. I did take a dry towel and just run over everything to make sure everything was completely dry. I let it sit for a couple of hours, and now I'm going to start the restore finish process. This is a Howard product. I do like to wear gloves because it can get on your hands, and give it a good shake before you use it. I'm going to use some painter's rags here, but you could also use a soft cloth if you wanted to. These painter's rags worked well for me. You're just going to put a little bit of the product in an obscure place. So you just want to test a little patch first before you really get started with the entire piece. I'm going to use the back leg here, and I just ran the rag over the piece of furniture a couple of times, made sure it was a nice color match, made sure it was going on smoothly, and it looked beautiful right away. It was really the right color, and I'm ready to proceed. When you're finished rubbing the product into the furniture, let it sit for about an hour or 2, and then you're going to run a clean, dry rag over it to soak up the excess. So you don't want to leave any of the excess on there. You will get some on your rag. Here's mine after I ran it over the piece after sitting about an hour or so. You can see that it did pick up a little bit of product. And I actually did this a couple of times. I only went over the entire piece of furniture one time with this restore finish, and it did a beautiful job just kind of brightening it up. It kind of filled in some discolored areas, and it just made it look a little bit more polished and new. It really looked beautiful. It's not like a stain, but this is the next best thing. It's so easy to do. It really just took 10 minutes to wipe the product over. I made sure I applied plenty of product, really let it sit in for a couple of hours, and wiped it off. And then the next phase I did the next day. I'm going to do this feed and wax. I was most excited about this. The wax smells really beautiful. It doesn't have a medicinal smell like some other products do. This is citrusy in scent, and you can see it's a really nice thick product. It really applies nicely. If you've ever used a wax before, you know that they can be a little bit finicky. This is definitely one of my new favorites. This Howard's feed and wax went on beautifully. I put a liberal amount onto each drawer. I did this over the entire frame as well. I took my time with this, and I did let this sit, and I did probably about 3 or 4 rounds of the wax just because I felt like this piece of furniture was extra dry. Even one coat, though, will hugely make an impact on your furniture. So if you're just looking for some extra wax, go ahead and do it a few times. I was really pleased with how it looked in the end. And now that those are finished and set for a day, I'm going to add my liners. I am no pro at adding drawer liners. I tried a couple different methods. One method is just to cut it to the approximate length a little bit longer, and then put it inside. Make sure you're reaching into all the corners snugly, and then taking a pen knife and running it right along the edge of the liner. Because this is a rubber product, it did peel quite easily. But it's a little tricky to get exact measurements here. So I did try this method. It worked okay. But the next method I tried actually worked a little bit better. I flipped the drawer over upside down, and I just used my pen knife on the back of the unit, and I traced the base of the drawer that way. And then when I flipped the drawer over, I could just place this liner directly on the inside, and it worked a lot better. These are 2 pieces of thrifted hardware I found, and I just thought they were so beautiful. This is from an architectural salvage store. See if your town has one of these. They are the neatest places. So this hardware is kind of hard to come by. You cannot buy something like this brand new very easily. So I just thought these were so gorgeous. But you can see that they don't really look brass. They kind of look like they have a strong patina. So I tried this Brasso, didn't really work that well. So now I'm going to try a rub and buff. I tried the Brasso on one item. It cleaned it up a little bit, but it definitely didn't give it that brass antique look I'm looking for. So this rub and buff is great. It comes in a few different colors. I got mine in the gold. I just put a very tiny amount on a toothbrush and you can just scrub over the surface. It will give it an immediate shine and it will stick to the product. It doesn't rub off, but if you take a paper towel to it right after you apply the product, you can manage to wipe a little bit of it off and give it a more of an antique look, which is what I did here. Here's one finished and one unfinished. You can see what a difference it makes. I'll show you exactly how I do it. It really just took 5 minutes to do this. So take the Rub and Buff product. I'm not even applying new product here. This is just left over from when I did the other one. It's a tiny, tiny amount. I like to use a toothbrush for this item because you can see it has all these grooves and notches in it. So the toothbrush does a great job getting into all those little crevices. Just run the toothbrush over the entire piece of hardware, give it a good scrub, and when you're finished, immediately take a paper towel and just rub lightly over it to take some of the product off so it doesn't look too perfect. Super, super pleased with how these turned out. They look absolutely gorgeous. These are going to go on the top 2 curved drawers of the highboy. And for the bottom 4 long drawers, I actually purchased some brass hardware on Etsy, and they have a French-inspired floral look to them. I'll show you those as soon as they come in. And I think the combination will really be striking when they're finished. So you can see that you just want to make sure that you get the product on all the little crevices. Take that paper towel, wipe it off just a little bit, and that will go a long way at making this piece of hardware look a little bit more antique. It was a really fun process, and I loved using that Rub and Buff product. I used so little of it. That tiny little tube would last you a very long time, so I'm looking forward to trying it out on some other projects in this room. And now that I have my hardware for the other 4 drawers, let's unbox it and see if it's a good match for the restored hardware. I wanted something that looked French inspired, and these antique brass knobs looked perfect on Etsy. They took quite a while to come in, but I'm really hoping that they're the right size and fit. I'm so pleased with how these look. Look at that beautiful design on the front. It looks like the hardware is actually going to fit on this drawer. Let's go ahead and pull out our restored hardware and see if it's a match. I think it's definitely close enough. These are going to look so pretty together, and it's going to add a little bit of visual interest to this dresser. I let the highboy air dry for a few days and replaced the drawers, moved it back into the bedroom. It's looking gorgeous. And here it is all finished. Yes, I went with off-white. It's a little boring, but it's a nice blank palette to work with in this room restoration. And look how beautiful the highboy turned out. And you might notice something here. I did not put the salvaged pieces of hardware in the top 2 drawers. Unfortunately, they did not fit the holes. So I just bought these replacement knobs from Hobby Lobby. They're okay, but my heart is really set on using the ones that I restored. So I might have to drill out the holes just a little bit so I can fit them in there. But look how pretty these French-inspired knobs are. Look how nice and clean the front of the drawers look. The Howard product looks beautiful on this dresser. Look how nice and clean the top looks. I was even able to remove those little paint marks on the front by using a 00 stainless steel bowl. The drawer liners aren't perfect, but they look gorgeous. You would never know that they're not perfect on the inside. I could not be more pleased with how this looks. The room is starting to come together. You can see that I actually went ahead and had some sconces installed. I'll go over that in another video. And this room is looking so much better than before. And here's a little sneak peek at my next project. I thrifted this cute little side table, and yes, my salvaged hardware actually fits on this, so I'm not sure if I'm just going to use the one piece here or drill holes in my old dresser, but this one's a little bit more rough. So we're going to do something really fun here. We're going to be painting this piece of furniture. We're going to be using a resin all-in-one paint, so I won't need to sand this. I'm just going to clean it up, and I'm going to brush this product on. This little side table was $35, but you can see that it does have some damage on the wood here, and it's actually split a little bit, so we need to fill this in and smooth it out. I'm going to try using a wall spackle that is primer ready. I'm just going to put the spackle product on, smooth it out as best I can, and then sand it before we paint this entire product. And I'm really excited to see how this turns out. It has this fun little drawer that you can put little items in, and I love the small details on the side as well. I think this is going to be a beautiful product when it's finished, and it's going to add a little bit of design interest and a little bit of color that this room needs. I'm thinking of getting rid of this tall lamp behind the dresser as well. What do you think? I think a small little lamp here might look really gorgeous. So stay tuned for my $3,000 room makeover. I'm about $2,000 in, and I'm going to show you exactly what I've used it on so far, and I'll also show you the process of putting together this little side table and painting it.